Box taking. Have a blinking high level light. You are go. Water systems, go. Range operations, correct. Ready light, go.
With the entire world as our witness, the countdown begins at Cape Canaveral, Florida, for one of man's greatest adventures.
I'm interested in this idea of a person who is trying to find out something more about the world, trying to search for some sort of truth, and usually from a very optimistic and often generous point of view, looking to try and add something positive to the world. I've had a long-standing interest in the relationship between science and art. I'm really interested in the difference between a thing and the representation of the thing. And so I'm interested particularly in objects where we don't even get a chance to make that distinction, objects which have disappeared essentially from the world. Well, the earliest works that come from my interest in looking at the US space program. With my Voyager, for example, I was particularly interested in the golden record.
Each Voyager carries a cosmic greeting card in the form of a gold-coated copper disc. The record begins with 115 photographs and diagrams. The pictures are followed by greetings in 60 languages.
And I contrast that to the Australia of the early 2000s, which was obsessed with stopping the boats, with keeping the aliens off our shores.
你好，外星人，欢迎你到我们的地球。
I went around my local area, Fitzroy and Collingwood, and asked a whole bunch of non-English speaking people to give me, in their own language, their own greeting to the aliens. The video is juxtaposed with images of the Voyager itself disintegrating. In many ways, that is a representation of my disappointment that I don't see so much of that kind of optimism. But at the same time, the fact that we would put resources into doing this extraordinary message in an intergalactic bottle is kind of wonderful.
Here we go.
Looking at the lunar rover work that I did, that work is very much about the degree to which we have to believe in these representations. And the Apollo project, the moon landing, is a classic example of that necessity of belief. You have to take their word for it that they landed on the moon. And we know that because some people don't. This kind of curmudgeonly desire to refuse to believe what they were told.
Okay.
And I mean, personally, I believe NASA.
Thank you, Dino. It looks much better. The camera look all right to you?
There's a video work that I did where I did a performance of the moon walking. And I built this contraption so that when I was hanging from the springs, I weighed 1/6 of my body weight, which theoretically is what I would weigh on the moon. There's a lot of seriousness, but there's a certain degree of humour in my work.
Well, there's a degree of irony in the title, Making It Real, because of course he makes it, and he makes it to look real, and it's certainly dimensionally accurate, but very clearly not an actual rendition of the object itself.
I refer to what I do very much as reenactments rather than replicas. A replica is something that attempts to fool you into thinking that you're looking at the real thing. And I find that a little disingenuous, to be honest. My work is about trying to embody the object, but also a sense that you're clearly not looking at the real thing. My work has a very strong kind of DIY aesthetic, but also ethic, this idea that it's my Voyager, for example. My Humvee is a reenactment of the US military Humvee, as well as remaking it in plywood. I've painted it black and stood it up on its nose. And so it becomes a bit like a funerary monument. Mapping has always been tied fairly directly to empire. This one here is a contemporary Russian GLONASS satellite. They all provide you with navigational and locational data, but each empire has developed their own, and each one has a sort of aesthetic. The European one I've rendered using different kinds of plywood and a wax surface. Got almost a Scandinavian design feel to it. Attached to those sculptures of satellites is a reenactment of the Google Street View camera. I've also included these small figures.
So through the little 3D printed figures, it's kind of creating a narrative, and I suppose it's showing us how these things have infiltrated our lives, that they're all around us.
It takes on a slightly sinister aspect. While I've been at University of Queensland, I've been involved in an artist-in-residence program at the High Shot Centre for Hypersonics there, working with Dr. Michael Smart. And they are a group there researching scramjet engines.
To have an artist come in to interact with us, I was really hoping that would bring out or make more obvious the creative aspects of what we do. What we're standing beside here is our T4 shock tunnel, and it's actually a facility that we use to recreate the conditions that you would have if you're flying at hypersonic speed in the upper atmosphere.
I kind of devised a project for myself which follows on from my explosion reenactments, where I reenacted the re-entry of a small fragment of water ice into the Earth's atmosphere at 2 times the speed of sound, at a time scale where the blink of an eye is an infinity of time. You know, this is like faster than the speed of sight.
Roger, backup clock is
The small spacecraft will be watched and guided toward its rendezvous with the planet Uranus in 1986.
These objects that I choose are beautiful to look at, but they also have these extraordinary kind of stories that attach to them. One of the reasons I chose Voyager was because it is the thing that we've made that is furthest from us. No other piece of human-built stuff is further from the Earth. I think there's a certain sort of melancholy in that, but there's also an unbelievably grand vision in that as well. This idea of this sending it out and it just keeps going. There's a kind of endlessness about that. I'm not sure how that makes me feel, to be honest, because there is a kind of melancholy to the emptiness, and it does highlight just how small we are. We really aren't very big, and it is really a very enormous kind of universe.
From here. 70 seconds, leaving a nice paper trail now. Looks real fine. Looks good back, G. He's got it. 80 seconds and looks real good from here.